let's take a look at some brand new Pokemon ideas that could be created for an Egypt Pokemon region. All of these ideas are based on the wildlife, folklore, and mythology from Egyptian culture, and I tried my best to make sure all of these creatures collectively would represent the vast history of Egypt. As I go through them, I'll talk about what they're based on, their typing, and what their abilities could be. Okay, first up, let's take a look at the regional variants that could be in an Egyptian Pokemon region. These are versions of existing Pokemon that have adapted and evolved to the environment of the Egypt region and have received new designs, abilities, and typings. As always, I have to say that we have no idea if regional variants, like Alolan forms, will continue on in the Pokemon games, but regardless, these are all the ideas I have for Egyptian regional variants. The first couple variants to talk about are ghost poison versions of Riolu and Lucario that are based on Anubis, the Egyptian god of the dead. Now, Lucario is already partially based on Anubis, or at least a general depiction of a jackal, but I wanted to make a variant of the line that really embraced the idea of being a guardian of the dead. I feel like a typing of ghost poison helps this line reference Anubis's association with embalming alongside death in general, and I imagine that within the Egyptian region there could be a legend about how these variants were said to help shepherd ancient people into the afterlife. For their abilities, I think they could have either Cursed Body or Poison Touch, while Mega Lucario would receive a Ghost-type version of Aerolate. The next regional variants we have are versions of Zorua and Zoarark based on the Egyptian god Set, who is also known as Seth. In Egyptian mythology, Set was a god of chaos, disorder, and violence, and was often depicted as an indeterminate animal called the Set animal, which references a combination of an aardvark, jackal, and fennec fox. Considering that Zorua and Zoarark not only fit Seth's whole vibe of chaos and deception, but that they're also based on an animal resembling a fennec fox type creature, I felt like them having a regional variant based on Seth would work out well. Dark Fighting type is what I decided on for the two of them, and for their abilities they would have Scrappy and a brand new one I'm calling Sandblood, which makes it so that when they enter battle they summon a sandstorm that doesn't hurt them. This is meant to be a reference to how Set was also a god of the desert and storms, and summoning a sandstorm upon battle to confuse and irritate opponents sounds just chaotic enough to work. The next regional variants are versions of Sandile, Krokorok, and Crocodile that are based on mummified crocodiles. In ancient Egypt, there was a cult devoted to the Nile crocodile god Sobek, who is a human with the head of a crocodile. This ancient cult would mummify any crocodiles that died to send them off properly to their deity, and they would dress them in extravagant riches and gold. As you can probably tell by the designs of these variants, they're heavily based on the mummified crocodiles that this cult would offer up to their god. The ghost typing is pretty self-explanatory, and the steel typing comes from the fact that, as I mentioned, the cult would dress the mummified crocodiles in extravagant riches. For this line's abilities, they would have Mummy and a brand new one called Hollow, which halves the damage they take from physical attacks. Next up, we have a scarab-inspired variant of Pinsir. Scarabs were very important iconography in ancient Egypt, and there were many amulets and symbols made depicting them due to their importance in ancient Egyptian religion. I would take a wager that even if you don't know their historic legacy in the country, you've probably seen scarabs in a movie or video game set in Egypt, because pop culture always uses scarabs whenever doing something related to the country. Now, one thing a lot of people might not know about this scarab is that it's a type of dung beetle that rolls around a ball of dung that it uses as food. I guess that's not sexy enough for Hollywood to put in their movies, but the Buddyverse is certainly going to use that detail. This variant of Pinsir becomes a bug poison type and carries a ball of dung around with it that it uses for various purposes. It can throw the ball at enemies with a signature move called Stink Ball, which is a medium power physical attack that has a chance to poison enemies, and its ability, Mobile Feast, allows it to gain nourishment from the dung and recover a minimal amount of health each turn. For those disappointed that Pinsir doesn't become a regal, godlike deity for its regular variant, I think its Mega evolution might be more up your alley. For its Mega, it truly embraces the legends and high status it was given in the region's ancient past, and becomes a godlike bug psychic type with Levitate as its ability. Moving on, we have versions of Numel and Camerupt that are based on a dromedary, otherwise known as the Arabian camel. Numel and Camerupt are already based on camels, but these variants become closer to the one-humped, arid living creatures that are found within Egypt. These versions are able to traverse long distances of the Egypt region on minimal amounts of water, and they become pure ground types with Sand Rush and Thick Fat as their abilities, while Mega Camerupt gets Stamina. Next up, we have variants of Onix and Steelix based on a substance called desert glass. This is a material often found within the deserts of Libya and Egypt, and nobody is quite sure where it comes from. Many speculate that it originates from meteorites, and it's apparently been around for a while because the ancient pharaohs of Egypt had jewelry carved from this substance. Desert glass is truly mysterious, and if we tap into the idea of it being from space, I think these variants could be formed from a celestial-like material. Onix would become a rock psychic type, gaining advanced psionic capabilities from the magical rocks it's made out of, while Steelix would be a steel psychic type. For abilities, they would have Tinted Lens and Desert Crystal, which is a new ability that doubles the Pokemon's attack in a sandstorm. The final regional variant I thought of for the region might be a little weird, so just stick with me as I go over it. It's a special Egyptian variant of Eevee that can evolve into two brand new evolutions, Elixion and Champeon. I know this is a little unorthodox, but it actually ties heavily into Egyptian mythology when you break down the idea, so let's run through my thought process. As I'm sure you've heard, cats had strong religious and social importance in ancient Egypt. They were heralded for killing poisonous snakes and protecting the pharaohs, and that raised their cultural status so much that there were numerous Egyptian deities depicted with the head of a cat. Two of these feline deities were known as Bastet and Sekhmet, and originally they were thought of as one goddess. It's unclear when they split into two, but when they did, they both went on to represent different things. Bastet was said to protect people from poisons, while Sekhmet was a fighter and warrior goddess. How all of this history ties into the Egyptian Eevee is that its base form is revered in the region and for centuries has only been attainable by the royal family. It can evolve into two brand new evolutions that are based on Bastet and Sekhmet, and if its physical attack stat is its highest, it will become the fighting type Champion with the abilities Huge Power and Guts. But if its special attack is higher, then it will evolve into Elixion and gain a poison typing along with the abilities Natural Cure and Poison Point.